It's extremely serious. Actually, if that threat comes to fruition, it would be the end of NATO.
We're going to stick now with Donald Trump. He says he's going to tell European leaders and NATO allies that we have to have Greenland when he attends the Davos event in Switzerland tomorrow. Let's speak now to the former Secretary General of NATO, also a former Prime Minister of Denmark, Anders Fogh Rasmussen. Mr. Rasmussen, good morning.
So good morning.
Thanks very much indeed for being with us. Look, we have the country that leads NATO, America, threatening to take by force the territory of another NATO member, Denmark. How serious is the situation this morning?
It's extremely serious. Actually, if that threat comes to fruition, it would be the end of NATO. It doesn't make sense to have a collective defense organization where the major ally attacks another ally with the aim to take territory.
How likely?
So it would be NATO.
Yeah. Look, how likely do you think the threat of military force is to come to action? Do you think that's just bluster, or is it something we have to take extremely seriously?
Excellent. Yeah, still, I doubt that it will come to that, partly because there is not support for that in the U.S. Congress, and a military action against Greenland would require congressional consent. There is no support for that in the American people, but obviously we will have to take the threats of President Trump seriously. So you never know. He's unpredictable.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and when we talk about this potentially leading to the end of NATO, what would that mean for Europe? Would that mean, no more American troops in Europe? Would that mean no more American bases in Europe? Or would it just mean a completely different situation that we cannot imagine?
First of all, it would mean that we in Europe will have to take care of our own security. We will have to create what I would call a European NATO, a coalition of the willing, countries that are capable and willing to do what is necessary to defend Europe. I appreciate very much the combined French and British efforts to create this coalition of the willing. So far, it's been too slow. I think it's been coalition of the waiting. But if Trump really attacks Greenland, then we will have to speed up that process.
Yeah, I mean, we put it as an if he attacks Greenland, but should we be doing it anyway? Should we be preparing inevitably for a kind of sort of post-American NATO future?
Yes, indeed. For too long, we have based our prosperity in Europe on an old-fashioned model that doesn't work any longer. We have based ourselves on a combination of cheap energy from Russia, cheap goods from China, and cheap security from the United States. That model doesn't work any longer. We will have to be able to stand on our own feet.
I have to put this to you, but Scott Bessent, the US Treasury Secretary, said yesterday that Greenland is a strategic asset that the US should own. And if the High North is going to be a future source of conflict between the US, Russia and China, is there any sort of argument that actually from NATO's perspective it is better if the United States owns it?
The fact is you could address that challenge without acquiring Greenland. Already today, the U.S. is present at Greenland. They have a base. They have some American troops. And if the U.S. wants to increase the military presence and strengthen security of Greenland, they would be more than welcome to increase their military presence. We would also welcome a permanent NATO deployment in Greenland, so we could accommodate all those security concerns without an acquisition, an American acquisition of Greenland.
If we're talking about Europe having to rearm, are we doing it quickly enough? Is the UK particularly doing it quickly enough? We won't hit 3% of GDP on defence here until the next parliament. Should we be moving a lot faster?
Absolutely. It was a positive development that the NATO summit in The Hague last year decided a new goal, namely 5% of GDP in defense and defense-related investments. That's a good thing. But in my opinion, the timeline is much too long According to our intelligence services, Russia might be able to attack a NATO ally by the end of this decade. So before 2030, we should reach the 5%.
Yeah, look, if and when it comes to America's attempts to acquire Greenland, if, as we hope, some sort of military option is going to remain off the table, and if the plan is, as it seems to be at the moment, for Donald Trump to threaten Europe with tariffs, how should Europe be responding to that? Should we be responding with retaliatory tariffs?
Yes, indeed. I think time has come to stand up against Trump. Time for flattering must end. And if he really imposes those special tariffs on 8 European countries, I think Europe should respond determinedly and carry out retaliatory measures. As far as the European Union is concerned, my advice would be to introduce the so-called bazooka, which is really tough counter-trade instruments hurting the American industry.
And look, as a former Secretary General of NATO, what did you make of the President sharing a personal message yesterday from the current Secretary General, Mark Rutte? He posted a screenshot of a text message he'd had from him. Was that anything you ever had to worry about in your dealings with American presidents?
Well, I think so far the way the Secretary General of NATO, as well as European leaders, have handled Trump has been successful. The successful NATO summit in The Hague was an example. Another example is the negotiations on security guarantees for Ukraine, etc. But now I think enough is enough. Trump continues his aggressive behavior against Europe. He doesn't respect international law. He doesn't respect European positions. So we have to conclude that the only thing he respects is force and strength. And that's exactly why we should change our strategy now.
I mean, speaking of things that he doesn't appear to respect, and with your hat on as a former Prime Minister of Denmark as well, how did you feel when you saw Donald Trump sharing an AI-generated image of him planting the American flag on Greenland? I mean, as a former leader of Denmark, was that upsetting?
Well, I'm not surprised of anything when it comes to Trump. But for me, the whole discussion has been painful. Since childhood, I have admired the United States. As Prime Minister of Denmark and Secretary General of NATO, I work closely with American presidents. I have seen the U.S. as a natural leader of the free world. Now I see all that erode. And it's very painful for me to draw the conclusion that we have to stand up against Trump. But nevertheless, this is my conclusion. Enough is enough.
Look, finally, Mr. Rasmussen, the President has now tied the UK's deal to hand back the Chagos Islands to the future of Greenland. Do you think the British government will be forced to change course? And even from a NATO perspective, are you happy with how all that has developed?
No, and I don't think the British government should give in to pressure from Trump. And I think Trump just uses it as an excuse for his aggression against, or potential aggression against, Greenland.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. That is Anders Fogh Rasmussen, the former Secretary General of NATO and also former Prime Minister of Denmark. Thanks very much indeed for being with us, and apologies for some delays on the line there. I think we got there.